Tutorial 1, Step 3. Add a method. Add a method and write your control code. Now you need to write the code that will enable your component to make the wanted regulation. Create a new method. Right-click on the Methods section and select Add Method. Name it Regulate. The icon of a method is an M. Write code for your temperature control. You can right-click and use Select Identifier and code templates instead of writing all the code yourself. Read the temperature from the input component into the data actual temperature data in the control component. Please note, it is possible to add some program to the set method of the register assigned to actual temperature data by overriding the set method. This code, we can call it functionality, is only performed if you write the temperature to the register actual temperature but not when writing to the actual temperature data directly. If the temperature is lower than the set point, then set the output. In all other cases, clear the output. As it can be seen in this simple coding example, the programming language is not using any begin-end, but it relies solely on indentation in the code. Note, it is possible to indent and unindent a block of code by marking it and pressing Shift, Ctrl and I for indent and Shift, Ctrl and U for unindent. Repeat the regulation. Override. An inherited method can be overridden, meaning that you can add code to the method. Once a method is overridden, the method will contain the keyword inherited, representing the code implemented in the ancestor. Interval. The regulation must be kept running with specific intervals, and for this, you use the timer subcomponent that you added earlier. The interval must be defined to 0.1 seconds, in the instance constant. Insert your program. Fold out the timer subcomponent in your component and select the timer method. As may be read in the documentation, this method is called when the timer runs out. Right-click to override and open program. In the first line of the program, it says inherited, representing the method code of the ancestor. Don't delete the inherited, unless you know what happens in the code from the whole ancestor chain. Create the program code that calls the regulate method you have made. Calls the runtimer method again, with instance constant regulating interval as parameter. This is what your code should look like. Init. You need to be sure that your system is in a known state before you start your regulation. After power up, the init method in the methods section is called automatically. The method init cannot perform any kind of communication with other components and is used for setting data values in the component. Any initializing of component data must be done here to ensure mutex protection, so all data is set up before the component starts executing any program. Just after init, or almost just after, where the primary startup is done for all components in the device, the method after init is automatically called. This method may communicate externally, via a connector. It is very important to remark that the after_init method is not necessarily the very first method to execute just after the method init has executed. So no vital initialization must be programmed here. Override this method to set an output in a specific state as an example. You have to add your code to the init program. Override the after_init method in your temperature regulator simple component. Call the timer method after inherited. This will execute the timer method, at the end of which the timer is reset and will run periodically.